and this should now be ready to on Facebook. Give me just 1 second.
How many people are actually watching this at the moment? 3. That's us, isn't it?
There will be more as we go along. So let me just run this first of all.
Good Lord.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our crowdcast event for today on the Recruiter Zone channel. As you might have noticed in the past couple of weeks, there are more broadcasters, if you like, in recruitment going to be using the Recruiter Zone on various days of the week. Myself and Louise organise events usually every Tuesday or second Tuesday, where we're talking about a variety of topics. And we've already had Katrina Collier and Audra with their show. They're going to be doing more of that. Steve Ward is going to be running a show regularly. And we also had Alex Moyle on Friday running a business development and social media marketing show. So there's going to be more variety of types of shows that are going to be all under the Recruiter Zone banner. And this will be, hopefully, the place to be on a daily basis. Every day at 1 o'clock, there'll be a different show related to recruitment, but covering different topics and hosted by different people. So you won't get bored up to here with me or Louise. Well, me mainly. Louise, anyone could watch every day of the week, so that's not a problem. Today, we are discussing recruitment events, in particular, the RECex event, which the three of us are involved with on the 20th of June. It initially started, excuse me, as an idea to give a platform to winners and finalists of the NORAs, which happens every November. This year will be the 17th year of the NORAs, and the NORAs event is great. It's a great event in itself. It's a great celebration of the best in recruitment. But of course, the night itself is a big party. There's a lot of alcohol flowing, and it's not really the perfect platform on that night to give a platform for the winners and finalists to explain what they did to get there, how they arrived at recruitment excellence, if you like, and what I wanted was for RECex to be the place for them to do exactly that. Now, we have with us here Nick Price from Working Films. Say hi, Nick.
Hi.
And of course, Hung Lee from WorkShape, winners of the Best Newcomer in the NORAs year before last, well, about 18 months ago now.
That's right, yeah. Hello, everyone.
Very welcome, both of you. Nick, people out there should be aware, certainly, of Nick's filming of career life stories. There's been a series of films giving background to some of the most prominent people in recruitment in the UK, namely Matt Jeffrey, Bill Bowerman, and Gareth Jones. I always get mixed up Gareth Jones and Gareth Jenkins, but Gareth Jones. Three guys who are fascinating on the surface, but when you dig a bit deeper, really all the more so. And I think there's a lot of characters in recruitment who have a lot of depth behind what you would see on the surface that when you meet them at networking events and so on. So Nick's been putting together a really unique series of these career life stories where we find out more about the individuals and how they got to where they are. Nick, can you tell us a wee bit more about the Career Life Stories series that you've developed and where it's going from now going forwards?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, my career started off in research and spending a lot of time talking to people and understanding their motivations, why they do the work that they do. Yeah. And yeah, I've always been fascinated by understanding more about the person. We don't work doesn't happen in isolation, and we know a lot of these people through work, through their networking, as you say, and presentations on the conference circuit. But what we don't really see is what really lies behind that, what shapes them as a person. Mm-hmm. And that's really how we started with Career Life Stories, is that we wanted to do proper interviews with people rather than just soundbite interviews, and really understand, their backstory and what shaped them as people. And you know, and as we see with Matthews, Gareth, and Bills, they've all had you know, experiences in life that they've had their ups and downs. They've had, you know, all these things that have influenced their lives and careers, and that's really where we sort of explore.
I think seeing the ups and downs, and it sounds daft to say, but you know, the downs in particular humanize the individuals. It's always the case that people are lauded for the things that they achieve, the companies that they've founded or bought and sold, and you know, magnificent adventures in business and recruitment. But the balance to that is obviously there are downsides where not everything goes as well as planned. Sometimes you know, you fall frankly flat in your arse, and other things that contribute to how you go about your business, which will come from the personal side of your life, your family, your upbringing, your motivations for doing what you do and what drives you. And those things really humanize the individuals, where you find out much more about them. Now, from a recruitment point of view, as an old school recruiter and interviewer, I love interviewing, and I love finding out about individuals. And in an interview situation, you get a really intimate connection with someone, and they'll pretty much answer any question, which I always found from the very first days in recruitment to be the biggest revelation, that you can ask anyone anything and they'll pretty much tell you. They'll open their heart to you. They'll tell you things they wouldn't tell their colleagues, their boss, their partners, their kids, and you can just plain outright ask. Now, there are many more rules now about the sort of things that you can't and shouldn't ask, but still, it's a really intimate thing. And in the career life stories, what you've done there is explore aspects of these individuals that other people just don't get to see or appreciate or find out about. So, you know, whether it's Bill's background in you know, his early days of recruitment and recruitment training, and the companies he's been involved with, or the stories that Gareth had about, you know, his difficulties in the corporate world of HR at times, or indeed, you know, Matt's whole upbringing and his outlook on life. All of those things really make you think, do you know, if they can handle those things and come past that and do as well as they have, then maybe I can too. So having that insight to it is, for me, is a fabulous thing in the series. And actually, that's a side of that. It is exactly what I want to show in RECex, where you see companies that have, you know, the big brand, the fabulous website, the great employer brand, and so on. And you think, well, how did they get to that? But by seeing the insight, by seeing what goes on behind the scenes, and the even down to the little tiniest decisions, it informs you of all the steps along the path to get to where they were. And it lets other organizations know, do you know, it's totally doable. We can achieve that if we follow not exactly the same thing, but if we go through the same, say, decision-making process, if we go about our work in a similar way, then we can achieve that as well. And it's not unattainable, it's entirely attainable in that sense. Hung, from your perspective as a viewer, viewing the career life stories, how have they been for you?
You know, I was about to jump in there and say, support that point, Stephen, because I think that, you know, that, as you say, everyone's got a brand and everyone has, you know, presents best face and all this type of stuff. But we're all very conscious that we're human beings at the end of it. And you don't get to see who these people really are. And as you say, I think the film was, all the films were excellent. And the way in which it was structured and put together really humanized people that probably are industry celebrities, if you will. And I think it does really make a difference to understand their challenges and how they overcame them, because you know, that's what everyone goes through at whatever level you're at. So I think it's a very valuable contribution to the industry. So
Nick, we're still at the early stages of Career Life Stories. There's many more to come. Can you give us any insight as to you know, what the plans are for it without giving too much away?
Yeah, sure. So we've done the first ones, and now we're planning a new series that we're going to launch in September. So up to now, we've done a series of one-off interviews, and we're just in post-production now. We've just filmed another 4. We've got another 2 that we plan to film, and they'll be released in September. So we're looking at regular episodes that we're going to launch then.
Fantastic.
The guests we'll announce the guests over the summer. They are people at the top of their game industry wise, both here and in the States, and it's really exciting for me. I love it. I mean, to give you an insight, one of the people that we interviewed, he's been around a long time. He was at the forefront of the internet technology in the 90s. He's well known throughout. And what we've always tried to do with these is make sure, one, that the quality and production is good to make it pleasant for the viewer to watch, but first and foremost to make the guest the star, and it's all about them. So that, alongside good storytelling, means that we can spend, in some cases, 2 to 2.5 hours interviewing somebody to create the episodes that you watch. So we're really excited about what's coming later in the year, and for me, it's just an utter privilege, and it's fascinating. Every moment I spend hearing about their, we aim to create a trusted environment for people to sit and be interviewed. And as you said, Stephen, people tend to open up better in that way. And
so, is it, the names of the people that are coming up, is it entirely hush hush? Can you give us any hints?
Yeah, we'll announce that over the summer. We're going to build some promotion around that. So all I'll say is everybody that came to be interviewed took a plane. So if that gives you any idea.
Excellent. And of course, 2 of the initial 3 are speakers at RECex. So I think when you see someone speak and you've previously seen the career life story of them, you've had that background, it gives you that other context. They're much more 3-dimensional. So when you're seeing them speaking about whatever it is they do professionally, and you've had the background, then you're able to absorb it much more, or much more readily. How would you feel about doing a career life story, Hung?
I would be honoured, but please don't sort of force Nick into making that commitment.
No. I don't want to twist anyone's arm. But
I mean, absolutely. You know what? I tell you, part of the reason why I think they're compelling is because I do believe these people, and I know Matt, Gareth, and Bill very well, of course. I think they do want to tell these stories. I think every human being has a need to tell their own story. But often there isn't a context for that, because you're representing your brand, or you're doing a business, or whatever it is, and you can't really tell people how it really is. I watched it, and part of the reason why I thought it was so compelling, because it felt so honest. And it felt, that Bill and Gareth and Matt all wanted to say what they perhaps don't really find the opportunity to say most of the time. So absolutely, it'd be great to take part. But there's lots of other people I'm sure would also make very good viewing.
I actually found it quite emotional, and I was thinking to myself, is Nick trying to make them cry on purpose? When I say cry, I just mean that the very fact that you're going over, your own personal life story, you're revisiting things that you maybe wouldn't be thinking about or talking about with anyone on a regular basis, maybe even since it happened. So when you're doing it, it can bring those feelings back. And as I say, Nick's the perfect partner. Working Films are the perfect partner for RECex, because this is exactly what we're looking to do with the organisations that are involved as speakers in the event, because without giving away national secrets on how they do and commercially sensitive information, I am keen for the speakers to be exposing themselves in a way that they wouldn't normally, and the context wouldn't normally be there for them to say, well, this is how we arrived at where we are, and perhaps explaining not only the successes but the failures along the way, the lessons learned, things that you only learn through having done it, but the audience at the event will have the benefit of that, because they'll be learning from it. They'll be seeing these organisations in a new light, in a different light, in a more 3-dimensional way. And not only that, but the speakers themselves, what they've gone through to get to where they are. So again, Working Films involved with RECex is for me was a no-brainer, and we've organised this event together. So Hung, if I can come on to you a bit more, you're going to be a speaker at RECex. When asked to join in, what were your initial thoughts?
But firstly, I was interested to know what your involvement made a big difference, Stephen, I have to say, because there's lots of events, lots of conferences and what have you going on. You need to weigh them up in terms of how was it worth your time, and is it going to be a good show? But I was very attracted, firstly, by your involvement, because I know you put a sort of a very high premium on putting a good event on. And also the concept seemed to be very interesting. You know, the idea that let's have a different type of conference. Let's have let's have it filmed, and let's make sure it was more of an expose. So all of those things. You know, I guess supporting the comment I made earlier, where people like to tell their story. Actually, that resonates with me, because I often struggle to find the opportunity to tell people about the story. Because I've got to go on message all the time, right? Because I'm representing Workship, very conscious now of being the representative of the brand. And it's probably been a long time since I've been able to say, since I've remembered a few things that I should be saying, that I kind of censor out, because I think it may have a commercial impact on the business. So those things, I think, I think it should be a very interesting thing to take part in, for sure.
That context is crucial, and as you say, you rarely get the chance to give the bigger picture as to where you arrived. And one of the most difficult things that people in recruitment, and maybe in other businesses too, but because it's such an unusual business, one of the most difficult things that I get asked is, well, what do you do for a living? My kids ask me, what exactly do you do? And they ask me regularly, because the answer is different every time, and it's really hard to pin down without that context behind it. And again, with Workshape and how Workshape evolved in the first place, I've known you since long before Workshape, and I've long considered you as one of the cleverest guys in recruitment in the UK in terms of
paying very well. He gets 100 quid every week in a brown envelope.
In terms of blue sky thinking of where is recruitment now? Where does it come from? Where is it going to? If I wanted to ask any of those questions, then you're the guy I'd go to. So in terms of that was a no-brainer. But when Workshape came along, I must admit, at the start, I was thinking, what's it going to be like? Because on the one hand, I'd be absolutely confident it would be great, but I was invested in it, working out well, and it really fulfilled. It was new. It wasn't something I could have imagined before, and I think you've got something really unique on your hands there.
Yeah, I mean, making a product is so different from the recruitment game, even though it is a recruiting product. So I think that was a huge leap for me. I'm still struggling with it, is the truth. Like I spent 15 years or more working in recruitment as a consultant figure, more or less selling knowledge. And know-how, and now here I am building software and more or less selling software. So that was a very big change for me. And I think I mentioned with Lars Schmidt a year or two ago when he did a podcast. One of the big differences that I find is that when you're working as a recruiter, a pure play recruiter, whatever it might be, you're in a comfort zone because you've done it for so long. You do walk around with a degree of confidence that comes from expert knowledge.
That's why.
It's not even confidence; it's just the fact that you know how to do it. So that isn't beyond ego, really. It's just the fact you can do it. Whereas running a business with a SaaS product or whatever it is, man, it's still out of my depth. This is something I'm learning every day, and dealing with, the mental shift from being an expert at one day to being a complete novice in another. That was very difficult psychologically for me.
In terms of your talk at RECex, without giving us the whole talk, what's the area that you're going to be discussing at RECex?
Well, to be honest with you, Stephen, until this conversation we've just had, I wasn't quite aware as to what the topic of talking I was meant to be doing. But as it's going to be sort of an expose for me on Workshape, I'll definitely touch on that transition between working as a recruitment person compared to working as a vendor of recruitment software. Because I think that's quite an unusual shift. I don't know too many people who've done that move. And now I know why. It's bloody hard. You know, it's bloody hard. And 99% of the time you're doing stuff that you do not know how to do. And yet you've got to sort of hash it out and do the best you can. So yeah, that's probably going to be the focus.
Excellent. Well, if I can recap in that case, so just as we've gotten to this point, if there are any questions, then please chip them in on the right of the screen. But to give people a wee bit of a rundown on the format and the speakers that we have on the day, we have the very wonderful Adele King from Virgin Atlantic. Adele's going to be speaking about insights to the Virgin Atlantic approach to recruiting. I know that she handles all the recruitment for Virgin Atlantic and Virgin Holidays, and amongst the many challenges that they have is matching the employer brand and the brand that people experience as they go through the recruitment process with the brand that everyone has, the consumer brand of Virgin out in the public space. And not only Virgin Atlantic, the airline, but all the other Virgin entities, because of course there has to be a common thread that runs through them all. And you know, one of the important things for Adele was making sure that when people join the company, they see as much red as they do see when they're on the outside of the company. So Adele's going to be speaking about that and giving an insight to what people just wouldn't from the outside know about Virgin Atlantic. Neil Morrison, HR Director Extraordinaire, and Neil announced just recently that he's going to be moving on, but at the moment is main board director with Penguin Random House. Neil's going to be speaking about a program that he's been carrying out over the past couple of years to attract individuals that ordinarily wouldn't be coming into the publishing industry. So he's going to be looking at, you know, do you have to look for academic success to get into this industry, which typically in the past had always looked for those kind of degrees. John Down from the Dots, who were Nora's winners again the year before last. He's going to be speaking quite extensively, and he speaks quite extensively in other events as well on diversity, LGBT, and he's got a fantastic story to tell there. Richard Brown from ARM. ARM Advanced Resource Managers are multiple winners over almost the entire period of the Noras, certainly in the past 10 years. And Richard is a recruiter at the coalface. He runs a recruitment team within ARM, and he's going to be talking, and he particularly focuses on the automotive market. So with that in mind, he's going to be speaking about AI and automation in hands-on recruitment, and what that means to ARM and how they go about making that and deploying that to make sure that it works for them. Not always successfully, but learning as you go along and refining what they do as they grow as a business. Other speakers we have, of course, everyone knows Johnny Campbell. Johnny Campbell is now world famous in terms of sourcing ninjas and training the world to source and going beyond that. Johnny literally hits 4 or 5 countries in the space of a week. I think he has done it for the past week anyway. Only rivaled in terms of traveling by Bill Berman. Again, world famous Bill Berman. He's, I think, in New York as we speak. Bill, I don't think his backside ever actually hits the couch. He's continually in transit. Let's see, who else we have? Liz Prince from Amicus. Amicus were winners of Nora in November, just recently. And there's one, I should also mention Matt Jeffrey. Now, multi-award winning Matt Jeffrey, I think, is his full name, his full title. But Matt, of course, featured in Career Life Stories. Matt's organization, SAP, where he's the vice president, is that the title, vice president? But global recruitment for SAP, one of the largest organizations that very few people have heard of out with that particular sphere. And it seems that worldwide, SAP for the recruiting processes and HR function are winning awards hand over fist. So they're doing an awful lot right. And Matthew is very much responsible for a lot of that. He'll almost certainly defer a lot of the praise to his team, which I'm sure he's got a great team, but Matt has to take a lot of the praise for that. There's one final speaker that I have hopefully lined up, but I'll know this week where this individual, I'm hoping she can jiggle her diary so that she can be in attendance, and that'll round off our 10 speakers for the afternoon. To give people a wee bit of an insight to the format, I make no bones about saying that a lot of what we're doing at RECex is inspired by TED Talks. We're going to have 15-minute, intense, passionate, insightful presentations from top-of-the-line speakers in the recruitment sector, from HR, third-party recruitment, suppliers to the industry, really reflecting the same spread of people that you'll see at the NORAs, but as I say, giving that insight to what they do. So the 15 minutes, if you've ever watched any TED Talks, anyone would be amazed at the amount and depth of information that you can get over in a 15-minute period. It might seem bite-sized, but you can really pack a lot into that time. It's also the case that for our audience in the theatre, at the Leicester Square Theatre in London, it means that if you're watching someone, you think, well, I kind of know this stuff, give it 10 minutes, there'll be another speaker on. But I assure you that every speaker that's coming, even if you've seen them speak before, we'll be putting together a special package for RECex. So as I say, over the course of the afternoon in the Leicester Square Theatre, bang smack in the middle of London, couldn't get a better venue. If you've seen TED Talks, typically they'll have the curved stage with the audience wrapped around them. That's exactly what we have here. And you might think, well, if the event's all going to be filmed, then the speakers are going to be available to view afterwards in an edited format. What's the incentive to be there on the day? Well, the incentive to be there on the day is obviously it's an event in its own right. Seeing them all together live is going to be a distinctly different sensation from seeing the films afterwards. And the audience feel when you're part of that, frankly, the buzz is going to be tremendous. We will also have networking and drinks afterwards, so that always helps when there's been a show on that everyone gets to have a glass of what they like. But in terms of the day in itself, as Nick said at the start, it really is going to be unique. It's going to be quite different to any conference you've been at before. We're going all out to make sure that it works well for people who are attending the event, people who see the event on video afterwards, and for the speakers. We want it to be a great experience for the speakers, where they're being given, as Hung was saying, kind of the gift of that context, a reason to tell their broader story, a reason to get that across, a reason to explain how and why they do what they do. Now, unless we've got any questions come up underneath, let me just double check. Not at the minute. I see people chatting on the right-hand side. I should also say that, excuse me, there are other events happening through the summer, and I know both of you attend a lot of events through the year to do with recruitment, not only for the fun and the networking of it, but to learn as you go along. True events obviously happen in London twice a year. I host the True Glasgow events every September. We should be having another True Edinburgh coming up. But as well as that, we also have next up Louise's UK Recruiter events. So if Louise is there, if I can just bring Louise back on, I'm going to ask her a little more about that. Do we have Louise in the room?
You do? Lucky I was just ready.
Fantastic. Good afternoon, Louise. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you very much.
Fantastic. So just saying that of all the events that there are in the year, probably the most regular and consistent are the UK Recruiter events. Your next event, I believe, is your Directors Recruiting event for recruitment owners and directors on the 17th of May.
Yeah, so 17th of May is the Directors event. We've got 4 of those this year.
Fantastic.
And then the Tech Showcase, which Hung, you'd be more than welcome to pop along too, and Nick, if you fancy it, on the 7th of June. And it's interesting, you comment about how much you can fit into 15 minutes, and I think that's a fabulous format for speakers. I think that works really well, and it's quite exciting because a lot of these people I've seen at other events, but to see them just presenting 15 minutes actually is, even more interesting to see what they can cram in. But the tech event, our exhibitors get 2 minutes, and that's it. They've got to fit it all into 2 minutes and excite an audience and make them want to see them. I think that's
actually for the exhibitors doing their 2-minute pitch before then going through demos. It's quite a revelation because there's a lot of competition between them, not only for the products that they're promoting, but actually in the speaking sense, just to make an impact with the audience. Typically, there'll be about 120, 150 attendees. Usually, there are around 20 exhibitors, tech providers, exhibitors at your showcase, and there's quite a bit of rivalry for people to make an impact with the audience. Usually there's Wendy, who never fails to impress. Who are the other people who stand out, Louise?
Well, Matt from Bond, was being talked about earlier, because he's always so lively when he comes on stage, and of course we do it alphabetically. So Bond wrote really early on. Yeah. So he really, I think there's probably quite a lot of pressure on him this year because this is probably the 10th tech event they've done with us. So, and he's got to do it differently. I mean, the audience is different every time, but some of the exhibitors are the same. So you've got to keep pressure. Yeah. Hung, do you reckon that in how much prep would you have to do to give a 2-minute elevator pitch? I mean, do you have an elevator pitch already?
For WorkShape?
Yeah, could you?
Absolutely. I mean, if you want to basically recruit software engineers in a non-intrusive way, more efficiently than using recruitment agents, then you work on WorkShape. It's as simple as that. It's one of the most simplest products I think that's on the market actually, because you can demo it in 60 seconds, and within 5 minutes you can get from signing up to speaking to software people. And that's not because it's genius; it's because it's ridiculously simple.
And I think it helps that you're not in a swamped market there. You've got something which people want, which you can articulate very easily. For some of the CRM providers, it's a challenge because there's 80. Well, there's a lot of CRM providers. There's probably 30 who are, regularly looked at. That's much more tricky to articulate what your difference is, isn't it?
It is, but I think those are much more, the multifunctional products is part of the problem. I think a lot of CRM ATS type solutions have really evolved in that era where companies would buy one big piece of software and implement it over 3 years or something and cost themselves 10 million quid to do it. And when you're paying that kind of dollar, you're going to get all whistles and bells. But I think the modern software that people are wanting to buy and use are just simple single-use tools that will drop in and out of things, like a video solution, a Sonru, for instance. I think they have been to your event before.
Yeah. And
it's you do one thing with it. It's an async video. That's it. So yeah.
And that's the mix we've got, actually. I'll stop speaking in a second, Stephen. But the mix we've got is up to 10 CRMs and then up to 10 other providers. And it's those other providers who maybe have a one-stop solution, which is maybe slightly easier to articulate. And so for the attendees coming along, they can see all the CRMs together and then look at the other stuff which is out there. 7th of June, come along.
Perfect. It would be remiss of me. As I say, our RECex event is on the 20th of June. 6 weeks from today, put it in your diary. It would be remiss of me not to also mention in July at RecFest, which I believe is on the 6th of July. And Jamie has, I think, 600 people coming along. So another great event in the summer. So it's going to be a great summer. There aren't too many events around about RECex, but earlier in June and of course in July you've got that. Going back to the event, one thing I didn't ask before, Nick, if I can ask you, you'll be responsible for the filming and editing of the talks at RECex. What are the things that you're looking for in terms of that edit to get the perfect talk to edit and put the package together?
Well, I think the main thing from our perspective is one, preparation, so that we know what we're filming, where we're filming it, where the presenter's going to be, where our camera's going to be. Yeah. that all determines how successful the output is going to be, which is the footage we're going to work with in the edit. So we've got multi-camera setup on the day. We've got skilled technicians making sure the sound's right, all those components. And then when we come to editing it, we'll you know, as I say, we've got multi-camera setup, so we've got a camera on the speaker all the time, as well as a roaming camera and a camera on the audience. So that will help to create an engaging and presentable package for viewers to watch.
Fantastic. So I would anticipate, and I imagine you would too, that as a long-lasting memory of the event itself, the videos will be shared far and wide in the same way as you'll have with TED Talks, where a lot can be learned from them. Because they're bite-sized, they're going to be maximum 15 minutes, then people can consume them easily on YouTube or on other channels. We'll obviously have them on the RECex.net website, but hopefully over time we can build up a library of talks on a variety of subjects from you know, as wide as possible, a variety of speakers. So certainly from a RECex point of view and the unique nature of our event, having these videos that make the event last much longer down the line are key to making the event a success. So you know, you'll certainly be part of that, Hung. You'll be one of the first 10. I suppose you'll be needing another haircut come 6 weeks' time.
You know what? I failed to actually get a haircut before I came on air, so I'm a bit embarrassed about the state of the bonnet, to be honest. But I promise you, come the RECex event, this will be looking spick and span.
You're not going to go for a mohawk?
No, it will be very conservative. I'm beyond the age of trying to be radical with hair, man. It's just got to be neat. You know,
Matt Jeffrey says he's going to pull out the stops, and I wonder if, you know, that might be part of it. I know that in talks in the past while he's been lying on the floor and doing all sorts. So maybe he could go for a mohawk.
I would encourage Matthew to do precisely that. I mean, he could, you know, dress up as Pikachu or something like that, bring the house down.
Dress up as Prince.
Yes.
No, maybe not. Maybe not. That's
I think just one point to add on the video side is that as with Career Life Stories, our we work to a high production level, and the production quality of our videos is really important. And particularly when we're comparing something with TEDx, you know, that's really key for us. And you know, the post-production planning, the pre-production planning, the filming on the day, the post-production edit, it's all one big package that we pay a lot of attention to. As you say, it's creating a lasting legacy and database of films. So
fantastic. So to our audience watching, I do hope you'll join us at RECex on the 20th of June, Tuesday 20th of June. There's a link on the right hand side at the top where you can see a link to all the details on the event and our speakers on the day, and of course the venue and location and so on. Anyone at all wants to find out anything more about it, then please contact me directly. I'm easily findable on all the social media channels. Just search for Stephen O'Donnell Recruitment. And of course, very much looking forward to seeing Nick and Hung on the day. There's going to be a fantastic event from 12:30 to 5 o'clock, and then drinks and networking thereafter. Hopefully the weather will be nice and warm in London on the 20th of June. So I'm looking forward to a fabulous day. Can I say finally, thanks very much, Hung, for joining us today.
You're very welcome, Stephen. Thank you for having me.
And thank you very much, Nick Price. Always a pleasure, never a chore. Okay, and thanks to everyone who's joined us today. I hope to see you in June. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.